ask you some questions, Commissioner, but before she begins, she's going to ask you in particular about the operational model.
There it is. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Commissioner. We are talking about the policing plan, and a core element of that is around the organisational modernisation, which has been underway for a number of years. Key element of which is the development of the operation model and the rollout of that, and you anticipate that being finalised next year. Another key element of the policing plan is the engagement with the public and communities. At the Superintendent's Conference this week, there was some commentary about the impact of the operation model on the engagement, the ability to engage communities. Can you comment on that?
Yes, thanks. And the opportunity to speak to the Superintendents Association and their conference yesterday in private session and take questions. And we did touch upon this. But the operating model is for the whole organisation. It's just not about the divisions. It goes some way back. I think if we take a starting point, the 2016 report that the Inspectorate wrote, followed by our own response to that, the Modernisation and Renewal Programme of 2017, and then the Commission of Future of Policing, which was adopted by the government then in 2018. And all of these reports and several other reports then spoke to the need to address the structure of the organisation. That in effect, a lot of what we've already been talking about, new crime types, new demands, etc., were outstripping what had been the traditional response, in that it was entirely focused on the geography of a district. And so we set to unpick that, and in part also then we were responding to internal feedback. The superintendents themselves were saying that they were spending too much time on administrative duties. So every new division now has an assistant principal who takes on, as a Garda staff member, a lot of the administrative functions. Also, there was feedback in respect to the amount of time dealing with discipline issues or complaint issues. And again, then we have a superintendent, governance and assurance, with specific responsibility for that. But one of the other areas which I found concerning was that a superintendent, no matter what their experience, as a district officer, could find themselves responsible for the investigation of very serious crime, up to and including murder, and indeed a sequence of serious criminality. And so to address that, we've appointed a detective superintendent to all of these divisions throughout the country. There were some here in DMR in 2018. They are now throughout the country. So in effect, we've moved from what was purely a geographic model to a functional model built on divisions. And it's achieved a lot as well in terms of the delivery of local protective service units at a divisional level, at a regional level with the cyber crime units. All of that work had been done nationally previously. It has created additional functionality at regional level, and that has allowed then for support for divisions should they need that. But I was a little surprised around some of the feedback and commentary, but at the same time we take it very seriously. But I would say, we've been involved in an ongoing dialogue in respect of this over the last 6 years. We've adopted our plans accordingly, but at the same time, given the change in environment in which we police, the need to be responsive to that, the geographic model just isn't going to cut it in terms of specialisation and the expertise that can't just sit at a national level, has to be available right across the country. And if you have a standardised way of working across the country, then you set a standard and then you work to lift the standard, and that's what we're setting about doing. So that's very clear around the Divisional Protective Service units. we've set a standard, they've been trained, and then we look to see what what evolves and how they might be trained to deliver that. And they build up their own expertise as well. So there is, learning, but also then expertise is built up as well. So that's what we seek to develop. At the same time, we have maintained and indeed grown the number of superintendents actually assigned to the divisional model. That's grown from 97 to 106.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just to really focus on that engagement with communities piece, has there been any assessment done, particularly within the divisions who have had the operating model longer than others, around improvements, assessments of improvements in terms of connections with communities? No improvement, or has that been not so good as it was beforehand, before the operating model was introduced?
It's in some ways that's difficult to assess because we've never really stopped. We haven't had like a day zero with this or year zero with this. Like, it has evolved as it's gone along. But what we saw with the operating model was that we'd have superintendents who were specifically responsible for community engagement. So do have a geographic area. They're freed of some of the administrative tasks, obviously, and the crime tasks, and then that leaves them then the opportunity, freedom to focus on community issues. But I would then point out to the community policing teams that we've put in place, the additionality we've put in place in terms of supervision. So since 2018, we've an additional 200 sergeants and an additional 200 inspectors as well. And that was all part of just the feedback we received. Again, a lot of it driven from the internal organisation. So I just don't see where there's been this mismatch between our response to the community and the operating model. We've put in place teams, we've put in place supervision in response to that. We've addressed many of the concerns that were expressed in reports and by tribunals in respect of supervision, support for Gardaí on the front line through the presence of sergeants and inspectors, and also then the raising of standards and behaviours as well. So that's all been achieved and delivered upon, and we're in the final really few months of the delivery of the operating model. And yes, I acknowledge we had expected to be probably 1,000 members stronger than we are at the moment in the round, and we still have issues in respect of our estate. But that's the next piece of work, because if we are continue to grow as our ambition, our estate is also going to have to grow as well. Even to recruit the reserve members and the additional members is going to bring extra couple of thousand into the organisation within a pretty short time scale, maybe 5 to 10 years.
Thank you, Commissioner. And maybe just I'll continue on to then talk about some of the core aspects of policing in terms